primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm Thompson with my co-host
Daniel Wingfield.
In today's episode 232 of Podcast 241, youtube.com/@241studios. It's the best place to consume all the content. If you didn't know, listeners, and let's be honest, you probably did not, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Coast Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. They have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow. I want to apologize right now. You're hearing the sickness in my voice. I'm here, but that's about all I am. I'm barely recovered, but I'm coming to you, our audience with an unquenchable thirst for our content. I've been seeing the comments. I've been getting, the angry messages. So I'm here, and we're gonna do this.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk about Spider-Man. And just a question: we haven't even talked about this previously privately. Yeah. Have you caught up on Severance? You know what's going on? You watched it last night?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Last night it was like the world was not crashing down, but it's like all the kids are here and all this stuff. And I was like, we have got to get them to bed so we can watch Severance tonight.
Did y'all do it?
Oh yeah. It happened.
Yeah. Severance and Invincible. So caught up on both last night.
I watched only the first 10 minutes of Invincible. Okay. And then I had to have an argument with other kids, like why this was an adult cartoon. I couldn't keep watching it and why, and like how those exist.
True.
And
fair.
how.
Yeah, right. When we were kids, those didn't exist. If it was cartoons, it was for kids.
They're like, what are you talking about? This is a cartoon. She's eating pancakes. And I was like, trust me, if I hit play, you'd find out pretty quickly it's not for you, And so anyway, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. For our listeners, I have seen Captain America: Brave New World. Okay, and I am dying to talk about it with somebody. No one in my friend group, nobody has seen this movie besides me, which tells you a lot. First of all,
it does. Yeah.
But I'm very excited to talk about it, and with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want to definitely see it, but
you need to. Yeah. It's not.
I'm not expecting to hate it. I'm sure there'll be plenty of interesting things to talk about, and there's probably some cool ass shit in there that's fun.
There is, there is. Yeah, there's you're seeing things and you're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, and then but the overall picture is what we got to talk about.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Anyway, but today for our listeners, 232, we are talking about another Marvel Studios property that is something that I had no interest in.
Right.
I mean, just from the get-go, I was kind of like, okay, what is this? Like, they're announcing more animated stuff, and like, that's great. Obviously, not everything has to be for me. This is Spider-Man, and it's like a different take of kind of what happened with Tom Holland's character in the universe. And then they started releasing
it. Was originally supposed to be Tom Holland, right? Voicing this?
I don't think so, because that would kind of start seeping into a Sony issue.
Oh, okay.
And like, because Marvel Studios can do anything they want with the character that's not live action. They can do anything, Gotcha. They can do any cartoon, whatever, because Disney owns that rights too.
Right.
So this was a long time ago. We're kind of creeping on like 4 years now. This was announced 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're finally getting the fruits of that labor. There's a few other small announcements, like Charlie Cox was coming back to play Daredevil, which I'd forgot by the time the show aired.
Yeah.
And things like that. That was his first, I think, true return besides that No Way Home cameo, right? So we started seeing him creep back in. Anyway, long story short, saw the animation. I was like, oh my God, this looks horrible. Yeah. This looks bad. And, I was just kind of like, well, we'll see what happens. I'll watch it no matter what. And, to my surprise, I really enjoyed it. It's not the best thing ever made, but I enjoyed seeing this interesting, like, alternative take on the MCU Peter Parker. And on top of that, it did a lot of cool things where it was kind of bringing in things from other interpretations of it. And I was kind of like, oh, this is, they had some decent twists. And some of these twists only really work if you're a hardcore comic fan or Spider-Man fan. And you're kind of seeing the play on convention, which this right here is another thing too. That my overall thing I want to say about it, and then I'll let you talk, is that a lot of people like get upset when things aren't one-to-one. And to me, I think if you just take the spirit or what the intention of the original property is and you honor that, you can do a lot of cool things with something. And
Absolutely.
Spider-Man, like a big example of that was for me the Insomniac Spider-Man games. I think some of the best
Sure.
Spider-Man content we've ever gotten, better than a lot of the movies, all the movies really.
Yeah.
And then, even like the Ultimate Spider-Man comic that's happening right now, which I'm just loving, totally different. But
Yeah.
anyway, I like it when they do play on expectations, and
Yeah.
I had a good time with it overall, and I'm actually excited for season two that's announced, and I my fear is it's going to take like another 2 years for it to come out, but
Mm.
I liked it. It didn't like blow me away in like
Sure.
any significant sense, but I really liked it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I enjoyed it too. I think I'm kind of like with you. I didn't have super high expectations. I mean, I just love animated everything. If it's a cartoon, I'm going to be interested into it almost. There's another one we should talk about in a little bit called Common Side Effects that I want to talk to you about
I've
because it's
heard about this.
really
Yeah,
interesting. It's really
yeah.
interesting. Okay, but yeah, back to Spider-Man. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think, the art style is definitely um, a choice. Not to say a bad choice. It's just very particular. It's very much um, like it looks like very comic booky. You
Very
know,
70s, 60s inspired,
yeah,
kind of.
and like almost looking like like those comic books back in those days, and um, but it grew on me as the show went on. It wasn't something that ever. It's one of those things where it usually looked good in motion. Sometimes that's where it looked a little funky. Like it was just like the motion of that, like still images. Yeah, they look really cool and comic booky and like colorful and striking. Just sometimes the motion made it look a little awkward. But like you said, I think I quickly adjusted to that. And I think, like you said, I mean, like it's not doing anything groundbreaking story wise. I mean, it's not. I mean, the show is definitely made for younger audiences in mind in terms of just kind of the relationship drama, like the interpersonal issues that Peter's getting into are all very preteeny or you know what I mean, like that kind of age audience for that. But like you said, what it's doing for people that have been longtime fans or more, even adult fans, is it keeps changing up the formula for what we're expecting from a typical Spider-Man story. And I think that you're right. Like that's what's keeping it interesting. The fact that he's working with Norman Osborn instead of Tony Stark. The fact that his dad is still alive, or uncle, he said my son. So is
Yeah,
that Peter's dad?
It looked like Richard Parker. Yeah,
Yeah. So his dad's still alive. I mean, like, there's just been lots of nice little twists, and even just the way it's kind of building up its world. I feel like it's doing a good job of kind of world building. I really loved Tombstone's whole arc.
That's the best twist in the whole thing for me. Was they're like, "Hey, Tombstone," I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" That actually got me. And I was like, "That's pretty cool, actually."
Yeah, and just the way they're building him up really I mean, he's still a good guy right now, right? And I'm assuming he will eventually become more like the Tombstone we know. But like I just think they're taking their time to build up some interesting narratives with some interesting character. Like even just his character had the most interesting like he was the star football player that ends up having to give up his potential career to take care of his family. Like that felt more adult, that whole storyline, right? Like that was dealing with more adult themes like poverty, gang violence, all these. And to the other thing, the show kills people several times in ways that I was like, huh, I didn't expect it to go there. But I applaud that. It makes it feel a little bit more adult in that way. All that to say is a surprisingly entertaining surprise and surprising show. Like I kind of don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what twist they're going to throw into the formula. And as a Spider-Man fan, that's just interesting, just because it's fun to see different iterations of this character.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, and just a couple of points there. One, Coleman Domingo is or Norman Osborn. It feels like ever
He's so
since
good.
he's been really getting a lot of award buzz the last few years, and really kind of coming into this actor. It's like in demand, and there's been all this speculation about him being Kang, and now he's refuted that in a previous story. But point is, like he's someone that's going to get a role, even though the voice thing is
Yeah.
not going to stop him from being a live action character. He's going to get a role that's
No.
going to be probably prominent in some big universe, whether DC or Marvel. And it's
Yeah.
fun to see him in a role like this too, because again, I think he's great, and I really enjoyed him. the Tombstone thing, that's something that you could see, like if they were smart, if you had a trilogy, you would kind of have that kind of character doing stuff. Movie one, two, and the third movie, he ends up being Tombstone. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the kind
Yeah.
of arc that if you were
Yes.
cool and smart and had some the foresight, you could really do kind of what they're doing here over a three-movie thing. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think it would kind of, you could still do it, but it would truncate that kind of what they're doing now if you did all that in one movie.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
it's nice having like a background kind of thing. But I thought there was even like one thing I really liked was how they tied it. I think episode two, maybe episode one, where it's like they shot for shot Peter walking through his apartment complex and the same song that was in Civil War, and it's all leading up to
Yeah.
exactly a mirror dimension of when Peter met Tony for the first time, and now it's Harry
Yeah.
Osborn. Stuff like that really kind of connects it to the MCU. And like, even having Matt Gargan as Scorpion, he was
Yeah.
he was like a henchman in the first Homecoming movie. And it seemed like in the post-credit scene of that, Vulture's talking to him in prison that they're going to break out and he's going to
Yeah.
become Scorpion. And we haven't seen that yet. And he's very rumored to be in Spider-Man 4 that we
Right.
haven't, don't know much about. But anyway, seeing like them kind of pull some of these anchors from that particular trilogy, and then kind of adding things in from the comics, and then kind of being real weird about it. Where also interesting, where Doctor Strange and Iron Man are the only two characters we see. That's like
Yeah.
MCU, and that's
Well,
the two that
Daredevil.
kind of and Daredevil, which
Yeah.
is all three of those are the three that have interacted with him in his movies.
Yes, right.
Which
And are
is
typical. I
interesting.
mean, outside of Iron Man, are all typical Iron Man or Spider Man team ups. I mean, Doctor Strange and Daredevil
sure.
are like classic team up.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and I even like it was interesting, like the time loop thing, right? Where this
Yeah.
Venom symbiote like thing is from, I guess, Clintar's planet symbiote. It's like it's a chicken and egg situation. Which come
Yep.
first, Peter or Spider-Man, and
Right.
or whatever,
Yep.
And so I think
Yep.
that was kind of interesting. I wasn't
It was.
expecting that, and it looks like we're gonna get the Venom symbiote next season, which is again, this is why it's not tied to Sony because. They can do whatever they want with anything Spider-Man related, and so
Yeah,
they don't have to.
right.
They don't have to be like, can we use Venom in the cartoon?
Right, right.
Because they don't. They don't have the rights to it. So
Yeah.
overall, we could. There's not a whole lot to say about it, other than I enjoyed it. I enjoyed kind of seeing. Here's an interesting thing too. Amadeus Cho is in this.
Hmm.
He becomes the incredibly awesome Hulk. That's like his moniker. He's
Okay.
another Hulk, and he was supposed to be in Brave New World.
Hmm.
So I think there
Gotcha.
was like a thing where they
Yeah.
had him in this, and the idea was that it was going to come out, and he was going to also
Sure.
be, and
Yeah.
it'd be like there's these two different versions, but it just didn't pan out that way, So
Interesting.
yeah, and that's how the MCU is always shifting. But yeah, I look forward to season 2.
It was nice seeing the Watcher there at the end. That was a nice little.
Always
fun
cool.
thing.
He's always in the animated stuff,
Yeah.
So hopefully
yeah.
Jeff.
It's always
John
just
Wick
nice to see him whenever he shows up. But yeah.
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 No,
No, I
I
mean,
also love Daredevil in it. Like just
he was
I love
great.
Charlie Cox, dude. Then we're like what 10 days, 12 days from Daredevil board again right now.
Are we getting those weekly?
I think the first 2 episodes drop,
Okay.
and then we're getting them weekly the
Okay.
next 7 weeks, I think. 6
How many?
weeks.
I thought there was like how many episodes are there?
There's only, I think, 9 this season. So
Oh, I thought there was like 18 or something like that.
that was the original plan back
Okay,
before all the shit hit the fan. So now it's
Are
short,
they supposed to be
truncated.
hour long or 30-minute long? Do you know?
The first episode is, I think, 54 minutes, and the second episode is 48 minutes. And other than that, we
Okay,
don't
so
know.
generally 40. Hopefully, we're looking at like hour-long TV type,
Dude,
40
with
to
Disney,
50 minutes. Yeah,
With Disney,
yeah.
how
You
do
never know. You never know.
And also, like 7, they're the longest credits in television history. Disney
Oh my
Plus
God.
is.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
That's true.
crazy.
That's true.
So because
Always.
they have like movie studios working on the shit, so it's like 7-minute credits. Anyway,
Yeah.
we don't know yet. My gut feeling is it's going to start getting shorter as the season progresses, but I hope that's
Sure.
not the case. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I mean, it is nice to have more Spider-Man in a different flavor. Going back to that, the Spider-Man I really grew up on, which was the Fox cartoon. And so yeah, I mean, I like you said, it's still not like a show that I'm just like I gotta see what's next. But I mean, whenever I got to episode 8 and I had to wait a couple days for the last 2 episodes, I was like, okay, I want to watch them now. Like I don't want to wait.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not a show that's going to be like, it's not, I don't know how to say it. It's not like premiere television or something like that, or even premiere animation or anything. It's just doing a good job of being a Spider-Man show. And I just like Spider-Man. So that's all I need, you know?
I've got two things I need to ask you before I want to hop over to Severance in a little bit. One is, I kind of like this release schedule. We had 2 episodes, then or 3 episodes, then like 2, 2, 3, 2, or whatever it was. And I was kind of I kind of like this. And they're obviously 30 minutes apiece. They were pretty much 30 minutes exactly every episode. Yeah. And I was which I appreciated, Disney Plus. Yeah. And I liked it. I kind of liked getting this weird truncated 2 episodes a week thing. And I don't know, it never felt overwhelming because I was like, I'm having to watch whatever, but I kind of liked that. I wish they'd experiment with this in the longer, other live action shows.
Yeah, now in the age of streaming and the age of binging, watching a show 20 minutes a week just feels weird almost these days. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to watch this story, I'm going to get 21 minutes of it a week. Like typically if it was on TV, that's about the length minus commercials for a half-hour show. And a show I want to talk about in a little bit, Common Side Effects, is like that. And we're still enjoying it, but it does just feel like kind of a drip feed in a way, when you're just getting 20 minutes of story a week. That just, compared to watching these other shows where we can watch 3 or 4 hours of a story per week, it feels kind of thin, And so I agree. I think to me, it's like, if you're going to have shorter episodes, then you need to give us more a week just to have like a full meal of that story per week. And I think it is just the contrast of like, we're watching HBO's Rome, and we watch usually like 2 episodes an evening most of the time, which is like an hour each. And it's like that story, again, I feel like we're getting through it in these big chunks where I'm just kind of really invested in the world, really invested in the characters, have a really clear idea of the plot and everything that's going on. And it just feels very different than when we're going to pop over to this show and watch 20 minutes. You know what I mean? I think, I don't know. I think it's an evolution of the medium where it's just like drip feeds like that just feel like appetizers. It doesn't feel like you're getting a full meal of a story in a way. And so, I agree. I'm glad that they did it with this. I hope that's just like, even Invincible, I love that they dropped 3 episodes day one. And at least when we're getting an episode a week, it's like a full hour. You know what I mean? It's not short. And so, and even the same thing with Severance. Severance has always been pretty consistently close to that 50-ish minute mark as well. So it just feels like when we get it, it's like we're taking a big step forward in the story during this hour of television. And
out of all those, Severance goes by the quickest, in my opinion.
Oh my God, yes. I know.
But interesting. Invincible did so interesting where last week, not this week's episode, they've did, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, and they did the credits, and then 30-minute tag.
Yeah, right. And then there was 30 minutes after, which Catherine and I keep, the first 2 episodes, we've kept forgetting that they're always a stinger after credit, the first credits. Man, so we had to go back and watch them. But anyway, this one, it was half the episode was after the first credit.
Or more. Yeah. But I think this maybe it's a case-by-case basis, because I think, example, like WandaVision, where we're getting these 30-minute week-to-week things, that was as I wanted to watch everything right then.
Right.
It really behooved Marvel Studios and Disney Plus to do week to week because it was so engaging. But Spider-Man's not that kind of show. It's not a twist and it's a cliffhanger.
Yes.
There's little baby ones, but it's not something where it's like, holy crap, I have like Severance, I have to know what happens next.
Yes.
So let's hop over to Severance. So like I said earlier, watched it last night, and this was I think a little less on some maybe revelations and more just kind of slowing down a little bit, and we're kind of getting some character interactions here.
Yeah, some obviously relationship development.
Yeah, some big things did happen, but overall, it's just so good. And Kimberly last night was like, how many do we have left? I said, I think if it follows first season, we only have 3 left. 9 episodes.
I think there's supposed to be 10 this season, but
I
I looked it up and it said 10, but that could have been Google AI. Being Google AI, which is pretty inaccurate. And so, we'll see. But no, I agree. I mean, Severance is it's still the king. It's still the thing that's It
Yeah,
it
it
makes
is.
us look forward to Thursdays. Otherwise, I don't.
Yep.
Thursdays is just a preview for Friday, which is the best day of the week. But it's like, oh no, but now Thursdays are a big deal. I feel like I'm watching The Office
Well,
again live when
it's
Thursday
Invincible,
nights.
Mythic Quest,
I
and
know.
Severance all dropped and now for me, Jack and Reacher all the same night.
Yeah, yeah,
So
no, yeah, and so yeah, I agree. This one, I did know like the plot slowed down a little bit in this episode, especially those like first 20, 30 minutes of the episode. It was just kind of all about Mark and Helly. But of course, it just, after that, it's like Helly showing up in the diner, or like Helena showing up in the Chinese
is
place.
she obsessed with him?
Well,
What's
I
going
think I
on?
think that must be part of it, but also like her playing it off as if it's this random, oh, I just happened to be here. Like that
Yeah.
that's the weirdest part.
Can I sit down?
Well, and then like when she sits down and then she's like, like this kind of like, look at here, look at us meeting here. When
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
no
Peeking over
fucking
the
way you
thing.
would ever eat at that shitty Chinese restaurant. You're a rich ass, like rich person.
No, it
And
did
so,
make me want Chinese though. So
sure, yeah.
I want Chinese right now, actually. Yeah.
And so like that stuff and just that interaction between her and Mark was really just their chemistry is really good, and they basically both play two characters that have two different chemistries with each other.
Yeah.
And it's like
Body language, and so they're great.
it's really good. They're doing a fantastic job. And then yeah, the stuff. I mean, like every time the show does the whole like integration effect thing that they do, I'm just always like, God damn,
Their
that's
match
so
cuts are
good.
so good.
It's like the amount, like it is the editing. The editing's really good, but really it's a lot of just planning and production design and
Yeah.
cinematography and really the planning, knowing that okay, we have to shoot this and then it's going to match cut to that. Like the way you come up with to come up with the idea for it and then to execute it so perfectly. It's kind of like magic from like a movie making perspective. Like as at just a technical level, it's really fucking cool. And some of the best I've seen of that kind of effect in a movie, and just like how rapid it is and how quickly it will do different things. It's so good.
Yeah. I want to talk about the Irving thing last,
Okay.
but I want to kind of ask you just your question or your opinion on, this reintegration thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's a couple things happening here with Mark and Helly R, or Mark S. Helly R. Is that inside Mark S. He is essentially kind of putting the mission for his wife on standby for a second,
Yeah.
because obviously he's got feelings now for her, and it was really very sweet, and it was fun
Yeah.
to see Helly R be like, kind of fuck my Audi. And also,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I want, like, it's my body. I want these
Yeah.
experiences, and it's like
Yeah.
it's a really cool. It's cool, and it's also like I just still don't know what the end game is here in
Yeah.
terms of how is this not going to be heartbreaking in some way?
Oh, it
Like,
will be. Yeah.
like, are we going to erase these innies? Are they, even if they become part of their out, if they merge into one person, you're still losing the innie. I mean, like you're still, and you're losing the outie. Like
Yeah.
you're both being gone at that point. You're something different entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just don't know, unless there's like cloning or something, and they're putting their conscious in that. I don't know, but but I'm not sure that'd be satisfying either. Like I feel like it'd be like a scapegoat to kind of make me this audience member feel better, which I think might
Yeah.
cheapen the show in some way.
I don't think it's cloning personally. I just think that's too easy of an answer. And I think they've already actually said they don't, that it isn't that. I think
No, well,
someone said, yeah.
I'm not even saying like, that's what they're working on. I'm saying like, how do we have
Sure.
the
How do we
happy
get,
ending?
yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think this is going to be a bittersweet show. It already is. I mean, it's not a happy show. It's a dystopian show. And so, and they keep, they still have not revealed, this is something I keep bringing up to Catherine. They have not revealed the year that any of this is set in. It's generally modern. But if you look, almost all the cars are old, like 20, 30-year-old cars, like from the 80s or 90s. Like there's lots of things that are just not giving us a clear idea of when this is supposed to be set in this alternate reality.
And
Right.
I know that part of that's on purpose, just because they
No, it
want
is.
to
They've
create
said
confusion.
they've intentionally
Yeah.
kept it vague.
But what I thought was really interesting, the last three episodes, we've like seen the most wide shots of Mark's apartment ever, and they're lit. You
Mm.
know, and like you're seeing they look very clean, very modern apartments.
They do. No,
And
it does. I mean, it
yeah,
looks modern, but it makes me think, what if it's not as modern as it looks, kind of thing.
maybe. I mean,
You
again,
know,
this is it's like a Tomorrowland situation where
you're right. Yeah,
this is not our world. I mean,
yeah,
it could be like Fallout where it's a mix of different things, and
right.
obviously, if something changed in their timeline that
Yeah.
that we're not privy to. But I just what's going to happen with this reintegration thing? I think obviously Andy Mark is doing his thing. Heliar is doing her thing now. You know, they're kind of being more work on the relationship versus trying to
Hmm.
figure out what's going on with
Well,
this
and they just
Casey.
they had to deal with it because I mean they're still dealing with the fallout of that reveal 2 episodes ago
Yeah.
with Helly and Irving. Like that was such a
Which I would
bomb.
argue, even though it's character development, I would argue it kind of feel like it slowed down things a little bit because now we're having to like catch
Sure,
characters up on things. We're having
a
to,
little bit. Yeah, I agree.
kind of advance the relationship again. Like we're getting
Hmm.
beats again. Obviously, they're different because now it's different
Yeah.
characters essentially. But the question is like, what do you think is going to happen with this reintegration? Is it he's able to walk between both worlds and be one person and like basically is he how's this working? My brain tells me he's going in the elevator and instead of becoming any Mark, he's just Mark. He's just this new complete version. He
Yeah.
can walk between both worlds. He remembers day and night
Right.
and he remembers everything from both timelines essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my assumption is that he just merges into the to one person. Also, just and they've done a really good job of making Any Mark and Outie Mark feel so different, right?
Yeah.
The acting, the way,
Uh,
like just total apathetic, depressed kind of Mark versus peppy, like kind of the Mark, kind of the character that we know him to play in a lot of other shows, like
yeah.
Parks and Rec version of Mark. And so they've done a really good job of making those characters feel so different that yes, when they merge, it does seem like that seems like a more normal person, someone that yes deals with depression, but also isn't constantly apathetic and down.
Yeah. Well, the
And
indies are just unburdened by, I mean, even look at I can't think, I always forget his
Dylan,
name. The Dylan, and his relationship with his wife.
yeah, well
She obviously loves any Dylan more than Audi Dylan.
yeah, no,
And it's
and
not even
that's
like loves him different. It's just that like she wishes he was more
yeah.
like this,
It's like this is probably the version of him she did fall in love with in the beginning.
Exactly.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Like this is who he is underneath the rejection and the failure and the problems of life. It does make me think like I mean, obviously it feels like it's heading towards she's gonna start having an affair with his Innie.
Kind of
Like that
is. I mean,
seems like yeah, already is like they kissed or whatever, right? And
yeah,
so
well, that would kind of tie into this Irving conversation, but like,
yeah.
is it cheating? I don't
Well,
know. I don't think so. I don't know.
it's dishonest to not be honest about it at the very least.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. You're right
And
about
so
that.
that part of it makes it slightly cheating to me.
I mean, if you were the Audi and you're like, my wife kissed me, but I just didn't know it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it
It
was,
wouldn't be it wouldn't be like, oh my God, but it would still be like, but why? But it's weird you didn't tell me. It's weird that
no,
you
I agree.
kept
I
this from me,
agree.
right? Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
the Irving thing is that's different, but again, they navigate that in a really interesting way.
They
Do you have
do.
more to say about Dylan before we move on to that?
No,
or-
just that it just I mean, it does make me think that each of these characters might get a different fate in a way. That like Mark may be merged, but I could see Dylan's having an Innie versus Outie kind of thing where he like one starts trying to take over the other intentionally in a way. Or something like that. It does feel like we're gonna get maybe multiple versions of how the Innie versus Outie plays.
You just kind of made me think of this. I think there's a version of this where Helly sacrifices herself, for she's always Heliar. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, I think
Because like that, I feel
that
like she wants to be Heliar more than she wants to be herself.
well, and we love Heliar and we hate Helena as an
Yeah.
audience. I mean, that's what we would want as
Yeah.
an audience because we really like Heliar's really likable and fun and interesting and just a good character. And then Helena's like a shadow of that, like this deceptive, insecure, manipulative. Like it is really wild. And so both with her and Mark, it's just such great different versions of their characters that yeah.
But it does feel like Helena though is like she's those things not because she wants to be those things. Like she
No,
turns
sure,
it
of
on
course.
sometimes. Again,
She's been
she's
forced
seeking
into
out these
this.
experiences and she's seeking out.
Yes, she is obviously a product of the system she was raised in. She's
Yeah.
not just an inherently evil person. In fact, Heliar proves that. That underneath all that, that's who she is at the heart of it. Without all the baggage, without all the expectations, without all the conditioning, that's who she would be. And even Mark, it's like without all the trauma and the depression and the baggage, this is who he would be. And I think that is something that's interesting about the show, that it is like just is a part of kind of the themes that we're swimming in. There's so many different themes, right? Like work-life balance and like corporate like religion, like the way it keeps equating like corporate speak and yes, exactly, corporate speak and corporate policies to like religious systems. Like, but then yeah, this part where it's like, you know, what would these people be like if you kind of partitioned a part of them off and let them kind of almost be born new? Like, what would they be like? So yeah, there's so much. I mean, I think that, again, that's why this show is so working at such a high level, is it's not doing just one thing. Even thematically, it's doing 5 things all really interestingly well. Even the whole thing with Mr. Milchek. I love, like, we didn't get a lot of him this episode, but every time I love him every time. But like
Dude,
we are
his
building
mirror
towards
speech
something.
could get him an Emmy almost. You know what I'm
Dude,
saying? Like that alone, and they all deserve it. But I'm saying like
grow. Like when
him
he just starts saying grow.
grow up,
Dude,
grow. You're just
yeah,
like, oh no, that's what
that's
we consider the
acting, man.
golden age of TV. Yeah, but you know that's why we're TV's kind of king right now. You know, and
Yes,
for
yes.
stuff like that and getting to explore, like obviously, you know, it's like he's like the kid who wants you know all the praise and like the
Yeah.
you know he wants the what I'm trying to think of
He's
like
the
from
firstborn. He's
parents.
like the one that wants the approval, always does the right thing. Yes.
Yeah, and
Always
he's
follows the
willing.
rules.
And what is he willing to do
Yeah.
to get that approval? And then on top of
Yeah.
that, it's like what's the damage that it's doing to him? Like him,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
basically
and
destroying himself in a mirror, and then also just
yeah.
like the
Yeah.
paperclip. Like I brought that paperclip thing up. The paperclip thing, you know, it's like it's getting to him. Like
Yeah.
how can he be
His
more
hands are
perfect?
shaking. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
also just even touching upon like the whatever they do with the paintings, you know, like they're just replacing them with all
Oh
people who
man.
look like
Yeah.
him. And
Well,
it's like this really weird appropriation
yes.
racist
Oh,
thing
dude.
that's
Yeah.
happening. That's like,
But
and
it
he
also
clearly is not
feels like
cool with
so,
it.
it's so, it's exactly what every corporation does during Black History Month or during, you know, LGBT week.
Sure.
Like it's making fun of just that like corporate active, like this just
Yeah.
completely
Well,
fake corporate acting to look like it's compassionate or aware or progressive. And yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
And
like they didn't have to, even that thing, like that is a new kind of thread this season that they didn't have to get into, but they are. And that's another interesting thread that's going on with Mr. Milchek and that other girl that's kind of the board's mouthpiece. Like, you know, yeah, man. This show, it's just, again, it's operating at all these different levels, and it's exploring. What it really feels like it's exploring these themes. It's not telling us what to think, right? It's not telling us just corporation bad, you know, like capitalism bad or whatever. It's like it's exploring these ideas that we're all familiar with, that we're all accepting of, and saying like, but what's the extreme version of this? Like, have we taken this logic all the way to the end? Let's play devil's advocate with, if this is the way we operate at work, or if this is the way companies treat us, what if this was set to the extreme? And that's, I think, again, why this show is so good, is because it's not beating us over the head with the message. It's not trying to be like the savior of America or something like that. It's just saying like, this is a bunch of stuff that's going on all the time that we're all dealing with. Let's explore it. Let's get into it. Let's just get messy with it, and let's see what comes out of that. Let's see what ideas, what feelings we get out of that. Just it's perfect. It's just kind of perfect storytelling.
yeah. I want to get into Irving real quick.
Yep.
What a scenario. You know, like
Yeah.
let's have two people who don't know each other, they're outies, and this outie's partner
Yeah.
and they're going to talk about the innie's relationship, and it's like this tug between like he seems very like you also like this guy too. Like
Yeah.
he's got
Yeah.
listen, he's been in other things and I've liked I
Yeah.
can't think of his actor's name or what he's been in, but I know when I've seen him
Yeah.
like, oh that guy, I've
Yeah.
seen that guy in
Yeah.
places. And what an interesting just dynamic and it's a kitchen table scene and like, kitchen table scenes can be boring a lot of times in movies. You really have to, I think the Bears, they come out recently, what a great scene, but it's kind of not the easiest thing to do is write those kind of moments and make them interesting. It's just people
Oh my
talking
God.
around food,
Sorry,
and
I
they
just had
did
to.
it.
John Noble is the
Mm,
actor, is Fields. The
yeah.
main thing is he's Denethor in Lord of the Rings. He's the
Oh,
old guy
the
that's eating
app,
the cherry
oh yeah,
tomatoes when
that's
his
what it
son's
is.
dying. Yeah, he's that's who he is.
Oh, that's why I
Yeah.
like
Now
him.
you
That
see it,
was
you're like,
just,
oh yeah, of course that's him. But yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
was the
mean, it
same way.
looks
I'm
just
like,
like him.
who? I know that guy, but who is it? And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Denethor.
I feel like he's also in some sci-fi TV show that I can't
Oh
think of what
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
called.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure he's in a bunch of stuff.
but yeah,
Apparently in
yeah.
the
So I mean,
boys.
like, what a way to make him what that scene interesting, and then like also
Well,
just throw me for a loop with like the religion part of it. I'm
yes,
like,
that's what I
they're
was going to bring
religious.
up. Well, that
It's
that
like,
directly ties into what we were just saying of like there's this interesting thing going on where these innies are kind of innocent of all their outies baggage. And like that's interesting. Like that's just an interesting thing, but then this kind of doubles down on that. And like, yeah, religiously, we had like this religious leader say this, so we were like, well, this is we should do this is like my get out of jail free card kind of thing, right?
what a radical idea in
Yeah.
my opinion. 'Cause it's
But
like,
but it's
and
but
it's also
it
just it's
plays into
like,
what this shows. It's like I love that it's bringing in this like what would religions think about all this shit. Like I love
yeah,
that. Like I love
it's
that it's
world
that's
building.
kind of it is exactly. It's
Yeah,
like and it feels so realistic too that like religions are always going to adapt to whatever kind of the full like the accepted practices is of society. Like religion has to adapt its beliefs around that in a
yeah,
way, so it's
yeah.
like, oh shit, this is happening. How do we contextualize this?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess this, you know what I mean? And so it's like, um, yeah, it's just I love just that it's again, this world just keeps adding layers of interestingness, of race, of religion, of like, innocence and sin and all these just different things. But yeah, like I mean, like it's like I never expected it. But then when it does it and you're just like, I love this show, man. It's just so
Yeah.
fucking interesting.
But it also just adds on a narrative level, just so many questions. I mean, and also just the tragedy of like, I'm
Yeah.
going to hell, but a different version of me is not. And so like that will be with my husband later. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It's
what
wild.
a what a like trippy, sad, like just I don't even know how to quantify that
But it,
emotionally.
and it also, but you're right. But it also feels so realistic to how we treat ourselves a lot of times with people in religion too. Of like this, like, well, we've got to purify ourselves so we don't spend eternity not with our people we love or like whatever. It's all this kind of fear based behavior.
I
But
mean, it
yeah,
makes me
no.
ask though, what did he do? What does he continue to do
Well, it
that he
sounded like he
cannot?
was just like a slept around party kind of guy. He said he said like I was like something in my youth at the table. He mentioned being like rambunctious or just like, wild, having a wild youth. So I'm guessing it was just kind of like full on debauchery, which
I
the
guess.
church
But then
doesn't like.
also,
And then
I believe what's his face, King of Gondor, that
Fields, yeah.
Fields, yes, thank you, Fields, that he was there for 20 years and not 12. There's something there that
Oh
they're
no, no, no,
right
no, yeah, yeah,
about.
yeah. 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 That which I saw some speculation of like, what if he's an Egan or what if he's
I don't think
involved
he's an
at the
Egan,
top
but I
or
do
like,
think, again, I think there's this thing though of like, I've said it from the beginning that they have moved these people around and they have
mm-hmm,
killed tons of innies of the same
right,
person.
right,
And
right,
they just
yeah,
move them to different departments over time, whatever stuff
yeah,
happens,
yeah,
whatever. And they're just squeezing these people until they get what they need out of them. And then they transfer them to a different
yeah,
sector. I mean, that's what
yeah,
this, just like the opening of the season where we were getting the different branch coming
yeah,
over,
yeah,
there's stuff like that happening too. There's no
yeah,
version where we're not. But yeah, so that's interesting, I think. And And also, I mean, what's Irving up to, man? I hope he's a spy. I really hope
Well,
he is.
then it was like, was someone breaking into his stuff? Is that what we
That
were
was the
seeing with
guy
that?
who's like the big
It's the
guy that's
board
like
guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
on Helena. Yeah, that's who I
yeah,
think it's who
yeah,
it was, And so obviously, I mean, again, my fear, I told Kim last night, I was like, we have 3 or 4 episodes left.
yeah.
Are we going to be in a place where we don't get any big answers and we're just kind of another huge cliffhanger? Like it scares me. It
We
scared me.
might, but to be fair, I will give the show credit. It already answered so many more questions than I expected it to this season. Right? It already, like, again, the whole Mark being set, like Mark integration. That's the last thing that happens at the end of season 1. He decides to be integrated, right? Um, Again, that to me, I was like, that could be, we won't get the conclusion of this moment until the end of the show, or we won't, like even the stuff with his wife, like even the fact that he realized his wife was alive at the end of season 1. I was like, oh, well, that's the show, right? We're just going to try to get back to the wife, and in 4 seasons, his Audi will finally get it, and they'll be on. But the
But
fact
to be
that,
fair, we've made no progress on that. We don't know anything
well,
extra about Miss Casey. We don't know. I mean, like
we've made
I'm
progress
not
in that they're
complaining.
aware
I'm
of
just
it, and that
saying.
they're I mean, he's made progress, and he's continuing to integrate and push it further in that way. But I mean, like, I just think, again, there's so many things that this show could have, there's so many ways this show could have strung us along with some of these interesting plot points, and just kind of been formulaic and just focus on interpersonal drama more than plot. But this show keeps giving us so much plot. Like these last 2 episodes, I agree, the plot is slowed down a little bit. It hasn't mattered because we've gotten incredible performances, and incredible everything else is still at such a high level. It's actually good sometimes to slow down the plot and really dig into the characters. But this show, to me, is, it just, the pacing of it doesn't worry me at this point. Just it just feels like they're playing with a full deck, and they know exactly where they're leading us to, and they know exactly how they want us to get there. And right now, it just feels like we're in the hands of a master storyteller.
I don't think they do know where they're going, personally.
I think they probably figured out the end of the show.
I don't think so. I mean, like, there's so many reports. This is the most expensive show of all time because of massive reshoots and rewriting.
Sure.
And you know what I'm saying? Which tells
so,
me
I mean,
that they had one thing and like this isn't working. Not a bad, not a bad thing for us, but it does sound like there's been other ideas on what we've gotten so far, and
that could be true, but that could also be that
flexible.
they could still know where they're going to, and they just had to rework how they get there. I mean, that could all be true, and they still kind of. I have to know that I think at the very least they know where they're headed. They know the general idea of where the show's ending, or what the conclusion of it is. I don't. To be honest, I don't know how you, as a creative, I feel like I would have to know that in order to tell a story this good. You know what I mean? Like, in order to
be fair, I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, like it happens. Look at Lost. Look at this. Look at
yeah,
that.
but Lost,
I mean, like, look
at
at
this
Marvel,
point, Lost
look at this.
season 2, Lost, the wheels were already falling off in terms of like they
They're-
just aren't.
they're different shows. I mean, they're different
you're right,
time period.
You're
Different
right, but to me,
needs.
this is at a different level than Lost.
No,
This
I
does not
know.
feel like
I
we're
guess I think
haphazardly
I've been
waiting
hurt
through
too many
the plot.
times. I
Hey,
think
I
I've been
get
hurt
it.
too many times, and I'm skeptical. That's my problem. And I think I need like one good answer to something, or progress being made in these characters' arcs in terms of, I'm really like the Audi stuff. I need progress to be made to feel like, okay, things are happening. I don't think this show should, like, I would love if the show ended next season. Like season 3 is the last one.
Season
I
3
would
or
be
4.
like,
It kind of feels like it needs to be a 3 or 4 season.
4 seems like
tops.
always, for some reason, like the time, like that feels like that's the time. But season 3, like if they did like a 1, 2, 3 beginning, middle, end, and like it was just, I mean,
Perfect.
you rewatchability. You've only got like 30, less than 30 episodes.
Yeah.
It'd be one of the greatest shows of all time, and they need to really think about that. And I think
I agree.
they're going
I
to.
hope they don't outstay their welcome.
Yeah, and Apple TV just announced this is their most watched show of all time. Like it's their number one now.
It beat
They
Ted Lasso.
beating Ted Lasso, yeah. So I think the ultimate theme of this episode, podcasting for one, is that this is Severance's world, and we're just living in it. Because every time we do an episode, this is the topic, but we end up
drift
talking
into
about
Severance.
Yeah. So a few more weeks of that, everyone. But I'm enjoying talking to you about it, and I wish tonight was an episode so I can know what the hell's going on, and get some more.
Okay, before we get off, I do want to hype up
Yeah.
Common Side Effects real quick because this is such an interesting show. So it's Adult
Where's
Swim.
this at?
Adult
Oh,
Swim.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, it's a new show on Adult Swim, which that's where we get Rick and Morty and all these other interesting. We got a lot of great shows from a lot of great adult animation from Adult Swim. They were kind of the first ones to do it, besides like The Simpsons. But anyway, so this whole story, it's a conspiracy thriller about this kind of hippie dude that basically discovers these mushrooms that can heal any disease. And so he's being chased by these pharmaceutical companies. And it's like this conspiracy of like all these different people are trying to get a hold of this just because of the power. Yeah, I mean, it's literally he found a miracle drug. It's like, there's a character that gives it to her mom with Alzheimer's and she starts coming back from Alzheimer's. Like he's like finding people crashed in the middle of the road and he feeds them a mushroom and they live. Like they come back to life. And they do this really cool animation every time someone takes it where it's very psychedelic. It's very, hippie in that like this guy's, he's this bigger dude, his name Francis, but he's got this like really nice, like almost Big Lebowski-ness to him where he's just super chill. But also is doing really interesting things. Like, I mean, it's got an interesting tone. It's comedic at times in this kind of dry humor kind of way, but then it's like a thriller. And then it's like people are fucking dying and there's like these crazy action sequences and it's all kind of revolving again around this kind of like big pharmaceutical conspiracy thriller. And so I'm
looking at it for the first time and
Yeah.
it looks like a combination between animation wise of like, I don't know, Boondock Saints, but also kind of
it has this kind of weird, like everyone has big
South Parky.
heads.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not like the most like attractive animation style, but I think it also really works for what it's doing.
And it's serialized, like every episode.
Yeah.
is-
It's like a series. So like episode 1, he finds the mushrooms, and then we're off to the races. But yeah, man, it's just like it's been a surprise. Like it just tonally, it has these like really weird moments where you're like following these two FBI agents that are just really dorky, but kind of figuring it out. But they're just like always singing in the car and funny. Like it
How many
doesn't
episodes are
feel
out?
like it. 4. I think the 4th one just came out.
And you're
so-
liking it though, like it's adding
no,
something.
I mean, every week we're looking forward to it. It's like it's dealing with big issues in society right now that we're all kind of aware of with healthcare and medicine and all this kind of stuff. And then you can tell the show has like kind of a sweet heart to it. It's about this kind of person that really wants to help people. And like, what if we did find this drug that could like save people's lives? Like it has this kind of optimistic, it has an optimism to it. It's not a pessimistic show, but then it is a thriller and there's guns and fighting and running and like, government agencies and like pharmaceutical companies hiring hitmen. Like, it's just like, it's doing a lot of interesting things that we just haven't ever quite gotten in this combination before. So I'm really liking it. Story-wise, it's great. All
How
the
are you
things.
watching it? Is it on HBO? Or?
HBO. It drops,
Oh,
on
okay,
Thursday,
gotcha.
on Wednesdays or Sundays. I think Sunday nights.
I'll check it out. Yeah, you convinced me, and it
It's
looks
worth
odd.
giving it a shot, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it looks crazy and weird and odd, and I'll check it out. I got time.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like it's like it's not a Rick and Morty. It's not trying to be a mainstream thing. It's just, it does feel like someone with an interesting idea got the keys to do something cool. And it's like, this is why art is amazing, is because we can have all these different things going on that is just like, oh, I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought it to tell a story like that or set something like that. So yeah, Common Side Effects, big recommend. Good
Last
show.
thing I'll say is, just more of a question. I don't think so, but you never got into Dexter, did you?
No, I kept kind of wanting to, and then like it would be like every time I'd be like, oh, Dexter looks kind of interesting, and then I'd look up like reviews and like, yeah, it starts good, but goddamn, this show sucks. it would just be kind of this like, yeah, it's a really cool idea that never ever lives up to its potential, which I'm like, oh, that's not a sales pitch that wants people to watch it.
Well,
But I
quick
keep
review.
hearing, that like these new things come out. They're like, oh, it's the best Dexter stuff we've ever had, and I'm like, but I'd have to watch all the other stuff to even get to this.
Ever had? Not sure, but I mean, first four seasons are great. It's mixed on the last three of
Yeah,
the main series. The ending was one of the worst endings of all time,
that's
um,
what I've heard.
which really like baffled me. But they kind of fixed it with Dexter New Blood, so
Then
obviously
I
it's
heard
not
that
good.
got mixed reviews, right?
I really like. I mean, to me, that
Okay.
was like this is classic Dexter.
But
This
then
is
they're
back
doing
to
the origin story one too.
yeah. So that's why I brought it up. So I just started. It's all out now. So I've been kind of waiting.
Yeah.
But Dexter Original Sin's out, and it's got like Christian Slater and some of these other bigger actors. You know, he's like in everything TV show
Yeah.
wise, and
Yeah.
it's fun seeing his genesis. And it's like, I mean, Michael C. Hall still narrates it just like he does in the
Is he in
other
it?
show. No, I mean,
They
first
they
episode.
have a young version of him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How
It's
young?
just.
Is he like
I mean,
a
it's
kid?
like, yeah. I mean, he's like intern in the
Okay.
Chicago or Miami PD or whatever.
Gotcha.
He's
Gotcha.
probably like, I don't know, 18, 19,
Gotcha.
you know?
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's early, but if I just didn't know if you like Dexter, it's its own tone and flavor. It's
Yeah,
kind of
I think
dark
I
and comedic and
would to a degree. It's just that commit. I mean, like there's
yeah.
what almost 10 seasons of TV at this point with it. I mean, listen, at
They're
some
10
point I may
episodes.
dive in. They're what?
They're short episodes.
Oh,
They're not long seasons.
It's a half
yeah.
hour show.
No, they're an hour. But I mean, like,
Okay.
I mean, I would just watch the first season and see if you like that. I mean, and
Yeah,
that's
I
a good
think
show. That's a good season of TV, and it has a
yeah,
good like you could watch that and be done really good. So
sure. Yeah, yeah. I may end up checking it out. I mean, it definitely is my flavor of kind of dark
yeah,
stuff and interest. You know, it's kind of dealing with morality and good and bad and what is good and bad and gray areas and stuff. So I have a feeling I will. It just I kind of probably need to be at like a drought again. Like there's just so much good
sure.
stuff to watch
Oh,
and play.
it's too much,
Hey,
honestly.
fuck! I mean, we got through this whole episode, and I haven't shouted out Avowed, which is this new RPG from Obsidian, which is great. I don't want to. We don't have too much time to
I
get
hear
into it,
it's
but
yeah. We have to wrap up soon, but I hear it's kind of like it doesn't do anything like a new or exceptionally whatever, but or it just does everything really good. Like it just hits
yes,
all the things
it's
good. No bad issues, but just nothing.
yes.
It's like a game changer, which is like
I think that's.
good and bad, but good. So yeah,
I think it feels like the kind of games we used to get, where like it's not GTA or Cyberpunk or these like kind of like takes over the gaming world, but it finds a really dedicated like it feels
but
more
it's
like
also not like having
a
trees
BioShock.
explode while you walk by them. Like it's not broken, which is like a
No, no, yeah, no,
I
yeah,
think a
yeah,
huge compliment for today's
yeah,
gaming,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Well, so I just want to say, like, I think it's probably a solid 8 out of 10 game, just in terms of what it is. For me, it's like a 9 out of 10, just because it's my absolute fucking cup of tea. It's like every quest decision is, well, do you want to do this way that kills this many people, or you want to do this way which kills this many people but slightly meaner? Like it's like it's giving you these quests and these decisions to make that are big and not easy. Like it's like if you do it this way, these things will happen, and this might happen, but this will happen, and it's like, well, that's not good. But we can do it this other way, where this even worse things might happen, but something better also might. And so it's just like it's that kind of stuff. It's that kind of world. It's based on Pillars of Eternity, which already had these big, massive like CRPGs out there. So it's got this like really rich world that's already been built that it's just getting to explore. So we're not just getting world building on the spot in a way. It's like, oh no, these things have already happened. We've already got this history. We've already got all these things. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's gorgeous. I will say that the first person combat is great. It's some of the best first person combat I think I've played in an RPG. It reminds me a little bit of Indiana Jones, but it's got these guns. It's got this really cool magic system. All in all, like I think this is a game that will be remembered and will be looked upon as very fondly. I think, of course, there's going to be people that it's just not their cup of tea, but I feel like the people that know what they're getting into and know how they like to engage these types of games, it's like Christmas morning. You know, like this is what, in so many ways, this is what we've been missing from the Bethesda games of recent years and in these other things. So, you know, and this is coming from Obsidian. I mean, these guys made Fallout New Vegas and Knights of the Old Republic 2. You know what I mean? Like these guys are OG goats of RPGs. Like it's just, they've made two of the most heralded RPGs of all time, bar none. You know, and so it's them doing what they do best. And so if that's what you like, you know, you're right. Like, you're not getting a cinematic experience like Cyberpunk. You're not getting a world that is as sandboxy as a Bethesda game. You know, you can't pick up every fork.
Yeah.
But
I saw a lot of comparisons of like chickens and throwing things. Like, people really kind of taking it to church, you know, like, why can't we do everything? And,
but to me, it's like, that's so, like, I would rather you tell me a good story than let me pick up every cup in the game. Honestly, like, I mean, like, that's fun that it's got, like, it's not a simulation game. Like, Skyrim wants a simulation. Like, NPCs have schedules. They go to work. They sleep at certain times of the day. The shops are only open at certain times of the day, and it's trying to simulate a world. This isn't that. This is your classic RPG, like Baldur's Gate 3, where it's like, here's this giant open hub. You can go find all this cool loot. You can find all these stories. You can do all these different things, and it's all handcrafted. It's all tailored. You know, there's no like with Bethesda games, you've got all these like kind of AIs running against each other. And what's fun about that is you get this kind of emergent gameplay. Well, you had a random encounter over here, but then the game also spawned this over here, and no one knew that was going to happen. That's just the game kind of working through its systems. This isn't that. This is, hey, we made a quest over here in this dungeon, and you only get that quest if you go to that dungeon and find that quest. You know what I mean? But that to me is like, when I look at the playthrough and my character, it's like, oh, this really feels like my decisions, because I went over here, I decided to kill this character here instead of letting him live, and that dominoed into this. You know what I mean? And so that part of it is so strong and so good. I just think some people are just because it looks like Skyrim, it's a first person fantasy game, that they're like, oh, it's supposed to be compared to Skyrim. No, this is like Mass Effect. Mass Effect 1 is a perfect analogy to this. It's like, Mass Effect 1 does not have a day and night schedule. Mass Effect 1 does not have these things. It's just, here's these planets, here's this space, here's these quests, go do it all. Like, that's what this is. And here's how all these decisions will impact the NPCs you've met and the groups you've met and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, man, it's again, it is like exactly what I want.
Probably. No, yeah. Just because I just know who I am.
It's not your cup of tea, probably.
You know what, I will say, and yeah, I don't spend too much time on this, but you know, it's been bumming me out, all these reports that Microsoft is like gonna be putting Halo on PlayStation. And like, I get it, you know, but it's like, why even? I don't know. I think it's not as fun. I think it's just not as fun. I like the idea of like having a team and rooting for it and competition.
Sure.
And I like Xbox, like, let's make the best Halo game of all time, and like try to beat, or the best platform of all time, and try to beat Uncharted, and try to, you know, I think I think it's better for the consumer. You know, I think their messaging is, I mean, I know what they're trying to do. Their messaging is like, hey, we want to be a platform for all gamers, but it's just they just want to reach a larger market. They don't, you know. It's all about getting Game Pass on PlayStation. That's all it is.
The truth is, I mean, it's very realistic that there could be no way to catch up with PlayStation at this point. That I think that's they've failed that for 10 years. They have failed to do that for 12 years now.
I mean, well, part of it is like I mean, obviously they had to go through like arbitration or whatever it was for Call of Duty, you know, because PlayStation was highly concerned that they weren't going to get Call of Duty.
Right.
But if they, you know, which is dumb that they have to do that. I mean, like, PlayStation is doing fine.
Yeah.
And I just think that,
listen,
I don't know.
I kind of
a bygone error, you know.
It is, and I felt that way too, especially as someone that invested in the Xbox ecosystem for the last 10 years.
Yeah, why would you not go to PlayStation then? Because PlayStation is not going to put.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Not going to put Uncharted on Xbox.
No,
you're going to have to go to PlayStation.
Sure. And that's honestly what I look at as like, man, if I could afford it, I'd probably go PC next generation, probably.
Why would you though? I mean, I guess
because I can play literally everything that comes out. I can play it on PC.
PlayStation is. I don't think it's going to be. You're going to be. You may not care, but they're going to drip feed.
Well, yeah, it'll be a year after release or something. But like.
Well, it's been way longer than that for something like God of War. It's been 5 years, you know, or 4 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, which is, if that's cool with you, that's fine. But I'm saying, like, to me, the best option is, well, I'll just buy a PlayStation 6.
Yeah.
And then I'll play everything day one.
If I go console, again, that is probably what I'll do is go PlayStation and then hopefully have like I mean, I'm not going to sell my Series X, so I'll still have that, assumingly I can just play all the games I have on that. But, if Xbox does come out with a handheld, I could see myself trying to go in that direction just so I can have my Xbox library mobilely and then that. Yeah. I mean, like,
why wouldn't you?
I agree. It is a little bit just like, it's frustrating as someone that invested in the Xbox, but like also like I get it from their perspective. Like they don't have enough of me's out there to justify keep doing it that way. And
part too is that
at the end of the day, I what I don't have never liked is exclusivity. I mean, I know it's like it fueled the console battles, but like, I mean, there was a rumor I saw yesterday that Rocksteady's next game is a Batman Beyond game, and that it could be PlayStation exclusive. And I was like, fuck.
I do like it. I like it because to me, the best games ever made are exclusives because they're designed for one console and they're not having to stress. Like there's never a version where the best games of all time are not exclusives. Like
Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the best games that's ever been made, and it's plays on
how long did it fucking take that game to get where it's at?
That's not to say that it didn't have to take a lot more work. But I'm just saying,
podcast on that game being pulled from the PlayStation Store because it was so bad.
But now it isn't, and now it is.
Our entire career on podcasts to get where it's at.
We're not talking about timelines. We're talking about it's the best. I think Cyberpunk 2077 is the best game ever made. On a technical and story level,
it's not fair to say. It's not fair when the fact that we're judging a game 5 years after it come out versus games that come out day one and are.
Well, what are the other best? I mean, what God of War 2018 or one of the Spider-Man games or like a Last of Us game? Yes, those were good on day one. That's great that their leadership didn't fuck up the development cycle and let it come out when it was ready. Yeah, the leadership, the executives at CDPR fucked this one up. Doesn't mean the developers were any less good or the developers did any less of a job. They just weren't given the time and resources they needed to be ready on day one. That's a management issue. That's not a development issue. All I'm saying is, like, if we're talking about the best games that exist right now, to me, Cyberpunk 27 is number one. I in terms of everything it's doing at an A+++ level, the fact that it's still the game that everyone tests their brand new graphics card on their PC. This is the benchmark. How does it run Cyberpunk? How does it do this? To me, it's like, that has nothing to do with it being exclusive.
Blanket statement. I'll admit this is all subjective. The best, whatever, if anything, is subjective.
Of course it is. And all I'm saying is, like, to me, exclusivity never helped gamers. It always helped the companies. You're right.
I just don't agree with that. I mean, the thing is, your whole life you've been in a situation where you almost have to pick one or the other, and so it's never benefited you. And but you haven't experienced like Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man or you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'd be Spider-Man.
Sure, I know, but you know what I'm saying though. Like, there's a lot of games you haven't because of your choice to only have one or lack of choice to only have one console. And so, I mean, as someone who has done all of them almost every generation,
but I think that you're an outlier. I don't think most people have both consoles every generation.
Whether I'm outlier or not, my point still stands that exclusivity produces the best product.
But where's how are you drawing a line of, this is only good because it's exclusive? I don't see the logical line between that. Like, it was exclusive, which helped the development time, and yeah, if they had tried to make it for multiple consoles, it may have taken longer. But I don't see the logic of, like, well, really, if this had not been exclusive, it wouldn't have been as good of a game. Well, why? I mean, like,
there's a lot of factors involved. One of them being, like, example. Budgets are determined by success of a game, right? And also that success is determined by how many units can we move on a particular console, as well as how many units is that, like, how many like hardware units does that particular game push, right? So games get bigger budgets or not bigger budgets depending on what console they're being made for, the exclusivity of that console. I mean, like, example of a game that's like a first-person shooter. Obviously you have some of the mega machines like Call of Duty or whatever, that are multi-platform, but even then they're various degrees of success because they are, they're just a conglomerate at this point. I just think that My personal opinion, I don't have to convince you. I'm just saying I think exclusivities are better for gamers to have really concise experiences at the end of the day.
Yeah, I just to me like if all of those games came
I'm
out,
not going to convince you, so
no,
there's nothing
that's
else
fine.
I can say
I'm just
about. Yeah.
saying. I'm like if those games came out on Xbox and PC at the same time, they just would have sold more than they
Well,
did just on
that
PlayStation.
doesn't speak to the quality of the game. That speaks to the success of the game. I mean, like that doesn't speak.
Well,
I
there's
mean,
a
what's
very
your point?
direct relationship between quality and success usually. But what I'm saying is like
But that has nothing to do with if I okay. How does that contribute to the conversation of
I'm
the
saying
game's
like
better or not,
it's
whether it
it.
releases on more platforms or not?
My point is it doesn't have an effect. My point is I don't think there is any relationship. I don't think it means anything whether it's exclusive or not. It means
But
something to the
but
publishers and the game people, the executives, but I don't think gamers benefit from exclusivity. I don't see any world where
you don't think
if this
Nintendo
game was
games are
just
better
made.
because they're focused because it's just a Nintendo ecosystem and they only work on Nintendo products and so they know how that ecosystem works. And I mean like
No, I know.
Super
I think
Mario
Zelda Breath of the
Odyssey is some
Wild
of
could be played on any of the consoles and probably run better. It probably would run at 4K 60 FPS on the other consoles. Like, I mean, like it just because they don't want to spend that time and like that's a business strategy. That's a business strategy, not that's good for business, not for consumers. Personally, if Nintendo was just doing their thing, but you could also buy their games on other consoles, I mean, whatever. I mean, like to me, that's just like it doesn't benefit them as a company because they sell probably less Switches or whatever. But as like a consumer, I'm just getting to play the games wherever I want. You know what I mean? Like it's the reason they don't like me. I mean, like you can emulate a Switch on your computer and play all those games at a higher quality with whatever controller you want. But Nintendo doesn't like that because that cuts into their money that they make off selling Switches. So like to me, that's like, yeah, it's a business decision.
there has to be at least one factor of a company working on their property and it's better than outsourcing it, or not outsourcing it, but better than it being released into for other platforms.
I'm
There
not
just has
saying
to
that it
be.
doesn't. It probably speeds up development time. It probably makes development easier in terms of just a technical level of getting the game to work. To me, it has nothing to do with the design of the game, the philosophy of the game, and really at the end of the day, the execution of the game. Is the game interesting? Do you have fun playing it?
I
Like
think
those things.
every decision Nintendo ever makes is about the philosophy of their company and how their brand's represented on their console. 100%. It's all
Sure.
Nintendo is the best example of this,
I'm
where
just saying the
they
exclusivity has nothing to do
absolutely
with the quality of the game. Does it have to do with the development time? Yes. Could it have to do with the
technically
performance
the
of the
exclusive
game when it launches? Yes.
technically the exclusivity in this case absolutely has to do with the quality because in your point, the quality would be better if it was multi-platform. Just to flip it around, I mean, like, right? I mean, if it was not exclusive, in your point, the quality would be better, right? That's what you're saying.
It could be if it was
So
developed for those other consoles.
so it sounds like exclusivity does affect quality, right?
It makes it worse. Is that your point? Exclusivity
No,
makes the quality worse because that's the example you're saying right now.
it is with Nintendo because they don't have the resources that PlayStation and Xbox does.
They have plenty of money if they wanted to, they could.
If they wanted
It's not a they don't have resources that they don't care to. They
well,
don't want to.
the resources are I'm talking about the developers, not the Nintendo company. I mean, obviously, those are a little weird with Nintendo because it's first party, the ones I'm particularly talking about. But I'm saying the heads of the company decide here's what our budget is, make a new console or not, and you have to work within the framework of that console, right? So I mean, that's when I'm saying resources. But even if I'm going to flip it on myself, exclusivity does have an effect on quality.
Yeah, but to me,
I mean,
again, well, if we're going to do that, does it have an effect on quality or performance? And are you going to parse that? Because to me, a game can be really high quality and have a really bad performance. Cyberpunk being a great example of that.
I mean,
Quality game,
I
horrible
don't think you
performance on
can.
launch.
I'm not sure you can quality now. I mean, like again, this might be a little subjective, but again, when do you judge? And that's a problem today is when do you judge a game?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like
So
it's
no
just
games. So it feels like every game comes out in medias res anyway. It's always mostly done, but we got to update it day 1 or day 3 with all these other things anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that should be taken into consideration when people are spending money for a product and they're essentially lied to. I
Yeah.
think that definitely quality and performance is a factor with Cyberpunk. I mean,
Of
it's
course.
it's hard to distinguish both of those, and I think
They have a direct
they're
relationship,
hand in
right?
hand.
If you have
Yeah.
an amazing game but it doesn't perform, no one will play it.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
look
if you
at
have a
Cyberpunk.
shitty game, if you have a
Did
shitty
we-
game with perfect performance, no one cares because it's a
So
shitty
let's
game.
look, if you want to talk about Cyberpunk, look, okay, what happened there? Whenever we played Cyberpunk, yeah, there was glitches and bugs, but we had a pretty okay experience. Like our review was, the experience is not that bad. Like we're
Yeah,
enjoying it.
we enjoyed it,
Spent
yeah.
50 hours on it. The people who had the best experience were people on PC because the hardware could handle it, right? And
Sure.
because the game was primarily designed with PC people involved, meaning that if it only came out with PC, then like it would have been a better launch for it. Like it would have taken 4 or 5 years and
from
tons
a
of millions of
business
dollars.
perspective, it would have
No,
probably been
no.
more successful. But
The game, no, I mean, just objectively, the game was best on this one particular console because it was made for that. Because it was exclusive, and they
it was
stretched it
optimized
across.
for that. Yes. Well,
they
and really,
stretched it across
the big issue
PlayStation,
wasn't
everything
that.
else,
The
which
big
is a
issue was
perfect
they
example.
launched it on both console generations at the same time. If they had not tried to launch it on Xbox One and PS4, they've been fine. Because they tried to make the game run on high-end consoles and shitty consoles, that's what they couldn't balance. Because the Xbox Series X versions and the PS5 versions and the PC versions were all fine. All I'm
Still
saying
talking
is,
my point. I still supporting what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if a game is designed for one thing, and obviously,
but my point is, you're talking about how the game performs at launch and its initial reception. I'm talking about the quality of the game in the long run. In the terms of the history of games, where does this game sit? And did the exclusivity do anything to that?
I don't think
so.
it's fair. I don't think it's fair to talk about it 5 years later. I just don't. I mean, I think it's.
I mean, I don't know how you can't. I mean, to a degree. I mean, like, I don't know. I guess what I'm talking about is just
Because I mean, when you talk about how good of a game is, I think you got to take consideration its whole history in terms of.
Of course you do. You
ripping
and
millions of people off their money.
Cyberpunk will always have a black mark on it forever.
for good reason. Yeah.
Exactly. But at the same
Which could have
time,
been avoided
it
if they
didn't
hadn't
do
tried
anything,
to stretch it to multiple
and at the same
platforms.
time, it didn't really affect the ultimate quality of the game. At the
It
end of the
absolutely
day,
affected-
the game
it-
became what it was supposed to be, and it is heralded. It is on the Mount Rushmore of video games. Even with the black mark.
But this might be an outlier too, in the fact that most games don't get a second chance to spend money into it. Like that's not a thing
That's
that
true.
every game company gets.
I don't see how that
And,
factors
like-
into the discussion, but yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, you're using that as a crutch. Like you're saying that any game can, if you give enough time and resources, that it can be
No.
amazing. It's yeah,
I'm
it
saying
can,
that
yeah. And
good
so, like,
games are good games, even if they launch in a shitty state and you can't play them well and they get a bad rep because the performance isn't ready. Good games are good games. Whether it was made for one console, for 3 consoles, good games are good games.
I
me.
agree. I just think exclusive games are better. Typically, there's always outliers.
Because
I'm not even- I'm not even
PlayStation
af-
and Nintendo, I think because they have
I'm not even
built
afraid
their
to say
ecosystem.
Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the best games ever made. I'm not, and to your point that it's on multiple platforms, right? I'm there's outliers. Again, it's subjective too. Your favorite game might be different than my favorite
Sure.
game, so it's hard to quantify all this. But I think track record wise, typically games that are exclusive are the ones that have the longest impact. I mean, maybe not longest impact. That's the wrong way of saying it, but I'm saying
the history of
best
games has been
experience.
exclusive. But, well, to a degree, it's like we haven't ever known anything different. So how do we know what the difference?
Not
would be?
true. I mean,
Right? Like-
obviously there's outliers. Grand Theft Auto.
Of course,
I mean,
but what
Mass
I'm
Effect
saying
2
is that like
considered one
you're
of the greatest
right
games of all
that like
time.
the 2 most exclusive companies have made some of the best games of all time and have some of the most the 2 most exclusive video game companies have the richest catalog of games that we've ever seen, right? In terms of PlayStation exclusive games, in terms of Nintendo exclusive games, they both have a long ass list of like bangers, right? And so to me, it's just like, well, the 2 most successful video game companies we've ever had, and listen, this industry is only like 40 years old. It's not that, it's pretty baby. It's a baby industry compared to most that exist out there. That's been the model that has worked for those companies. but we've never seen a different model practiced on a wide scale, right? And so to a degree, like, yes, there is the logic that, like, because PlayStation and Nintendo were exclusive, that drove console sales, which built them into the juggernauts they are, which allows them to make these games really good. Yeah, I can. There is a through line there, but
also when you,
but
when you-
also,
when you
like,
don't
but
have
what if that had never
competition-
existed? What if the competition wasn't about selling consoles? It was just about making good games. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know that. It's impossible to say that, like, oh, this is the better version of history we got, because we don't know. We don't know what would have happened if exclusivity was never a part of the equation. It was all just about games. We all make our consoles, but they
think
run
there's
on
an
what they can
argument-
run on.
There's an argument that if you're not trying to beat the competitor,
But what
then
if you were only
don't-
trying to beat the competitor at games, not consoles? What if you weren't fucking with the consoles? We're just trying to beat you with our games. To me, it's like, I don't know. Maybe we would have better games. I'm not saying.
I don't think so.
I just don't.
but-
I just don't think we can look back and say, well, exclusivity is the reason we got to this point. Exclusivity is the reason that
think we can.
Nintendo and PlayStation are the juggernauts that they are. But I don't think we can say exclusivity has been like.
I think you're wrong.
Anyway, it's fine.
I'm
I'm not going to convince you. You're not going to convince me.
We're not. Yeah, we're not.
At the end of the day, we're arguing about a bunch of what ifs in, like, an alternate history, and we have no way to know either way.
I mean, Xbox. It just feels like, why would at a certain point, why would they need to make these AAA games if they're just going to have Game Pass? You know what I mean? Like, why would they need to innovate with Halo or all these kind of things? And
because they got to make Game Pass attractive. But they're licensing. It's also like, but look at, like, Netflix. I mean, like, how many amazing Netflix movies are there? There's not. They're more pumped about getting content out. Sure.
And it's subpar content to have, just tons of options.
Yeah, I mean, of course,
And to
Netflix has a
Netflix is-
flagship, Stranger Things, but Stranger Things allows them to make all these other things that aren't blockbusters but find an audience. I think that's what Microsoft is, I think, modeling it after. Let's have these tent poles. Now, their tent poles haven't hit. That's been the problem of Game Pass, is that Starfield was not a smashing success. Halo Infinite was not a smashing success. But I think if they're going for the Netflix model, it makes sense. It's like, okay, we've got to have these tent poles. We've got to have these games that.
Well, it makes sense for the
make
business.
Game
not
Pass
for
worth it.
Not for. I mean, look at it. Also, it's weird too, because look at PlayStation. I don't think. We're not going to have just random companies spring up to start making video game consoles. I don't think, right? So, like,
Sure.
in terms of if Xbox just becomes Game Pass,
Yeah.
there's only two companies that will accept that will use Game Pass, right? Nintendo or Sony.
Or PC.
And
in PC, which we have to acknowledge is the largest player base that exists. There's more PC
Whatever.
players than any other than either of the consoles.
Sure.
Right.
And so I just, it's different where it's like a streaming service. I don't know. It's odd because it's like we don't have to buy a PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo system to watch Apple TV, Xbox, blah, 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 blah.
But we're already
Right,
I
so
mean, you can play all these games on your phone with xCloud right now. Like we're at the precipice. I mean, like, that's the thing, is that, like, so many people, they're gamers on their phones. They buy the little hand things and they play like that's how they play games. And so, like,
My point is,
we are just at a point
even
where
Game Pass doesn't have anything to compete against. Like, Game Pass, there's the PlayStation thing, there's the
You're right.
Nintendo Online, nothing to compete against. So it's like it's putting them in a place where they can put out like a Stranger Things every now and then, and they can do all the other bad shit because they just have to get the subscribers. Netflix is almost forced. Look at Apple. We don't talk about Netflix shows on this channel. Maybe we did Stranger Things a year and a half ago.
Yeah, we'll
But,
do it when
I
the
mean,
new season comes out.
But like we talk about HBO Max and Apple TV and Amazon Prime, like we've mentioned all three of those today.
Mhm.
So I'm saying, like, and that is forcing Netflix to
Sure.
keep their pie. Like it's competition to force them to do that.
I agree.
And so that's why I just can't see a version where competition doesn't help the product at the very end of the day and also drive sales down.
Oh, sure. Well, competition, sure. But to me,
That's my point
competition
is
isn't
competition can breed
is
the
not
best video
synonymous with
games.
exclusivity, though. You can compete without exclusivity. You can just compete for people's time. Like
You can't,
even like,
but I think it still makes a better product. I mean, competition. It's like the Naughty Dog spends.
I'm not arguing
infinitely
about
more time.
competition. I'm just taking
You're
issue
arguing-
with you saying exclusivity is a type of competition. It is a
It is a type
version of
of
competition.
It
It
is
is
a
not
version of
the version of you can compete in other ways. Like
You can't-
here's
you
what I
can't.
see
I'm
for
not- I-
Game
I
Pass.
didn't- I
Game
didn't
Pass
say
right
you
now,
couldn't.
at this point, what Game Pass is doing is actually they're getting on the level of all these other companies are, where it's about minutes spent in our platform. It's about minutes, time you spend doing things in our ecosystem. That's what's valuable to us. That's what allows us to get your data, sell it, monetize ads. Like that's the gold sauce. And so at this point, Microsoft is competing for your time in their ecosystem. If they can get their ecosystem on a PlayStation console, they've won. You're using a PlayStation. You bought a PlayStation, great, but you're
on
in
a
our
business level.
ecosystem. We're getting your data. We're the ones. Your time is being given to us. We get to show these data to advertisers and say, hey, look, they spent 50,000 minutes a week in our ecosystem. And so like, to me, it's like they're at that, but you have to have good games for me to want to be in your ecosystem. If Game Pass just starts turning out,
I don't think they do. I mean, they haven't
over
made
and
ama-
over
they-
again.
They haven't made amazing games. Like they haven't been.
Well,
like you
but
said,
They
Starfield did
haven't
not
made
hit.
exclusive
Halo
games
didn't
for it,
hit.
but they do have Call of Duty Day One on Game Pass. That's the cheapest way to play Call of Duty that has ever existed before. You know, they do have these big games. You're right. They need a GTA. They need a Cyberpunk. They need, and who knows, maybe Perfect Dark, maybe Fable, maybe they've got one cooking. But all I'm saying is like Microsoft is playing a different game now. It's all about minutes. It's all about,
I know.
are you
I
spending
know,
time
and I think it's sad.
Game
That's the whole point
Pass?
of this. I think it's sad. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's great. I think it's great for Microsoft shareholders. I think it's great for people. And I'm not gonna. I mean, I have subscribed from Game Pass. I probably won't for a while, maybe just because I like the idea.
If there's nothing that you're going to play, why would you?
If I finish my sentence, I like the idea of just playing classic games that I've loved at a whim, and I like the idea of trying out games that I typically wouldn't try before.
Mhm.
So that's why I would keep it, even if I don't play it very often. But I don't know. I just think exclusivity, which is to me a piece of competition, is better in a lot of ways. It's not always the case, but I think it's rule of thumb. But
Sure. Yeah, we'll see. We're definitely in a point of change in games. That's for
how
sure.
can our listeners write into us?
Maybe we need to like section off this part of the podcast as like a bonus episode.
Maybe.
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/2for1mail, where you can join in on the discussion of consoles, video games, exclusives, all this fun stuff we've been talking about. Hey, I actually, you know what? I know we
Spider-Man, Severance, our main
Yes.
topics of today.
I know we got into our debating moods, but I like talking about stuff like this. I like digging into what ifs and video game theory, and hey, we are in a precipice of change. Like video games are changing. The industry is changing right now.
Everything
Budgets are
is
too
changing.
big. Games aren't being successful enough. We don't know what video games will look like in 10 years. That's an honest, I feel like, perspective. And
I wish VR would just get its best version quickly.
if it can just,
Because
I mean, to me, I love
VR.
I'm just ready for what's after VR. Like
sure, yeah, and maybe the
the
I say best
HoloLens,
version. Yeah, I mean that's what I want.
I want a chip
but-
in my brain that I can plug in and just close my eyes and like I'm
me
there,
too.
and all the sensations and feeling. Anyway, all I have to say is,
Yeah.
what do you think about all this random stuff we talked about? bit.ly/
We're talking about the dangers of severance, and we're talking about wanting chips in our brain. That's what a full
but,
circle.
I mean, like, isn't that just humans are like, we're just such duplicitous people that we like, we want
this
two
is
things all
horrible.
the
Put a
time.
chip in my brain for gaming.
yeah. Why would you ever do this for work? But I would like it for pleasure, please. I just want to sever myself on Friday nights. Just Friday nights. Just go crazy.
I think there's a version where you can. It's like Total Recall, where you can just basically download a vacation in your head.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
it's
or brain dances in Cyberpunk. I mean, we're not far from.
Yeah, brain
that.
dances. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the dream. Then you could feel like you're living forever.
Which, hey, and like I love Cyberpunk because it like there's a whole population of people that are just brain dance junkies. That's all they do is like they don't do anything. They just look at. I mean, they do what people have done to World of Warcraft, but just like in there where they don't have a life, they just do brain dances, and it's just one fix to the next. Which, yeah, that probably would be what we would get to a degree once that technology comes out. We have a lot of other social problems. The question is,
what's real and what's not? I mean, what's is it? If it feels real,
and well,
it looks real.
Like I go back to that. There, I don't know. It's some scientific belief that like it's much more likely we will destroy ourselves before we ever get to the point of making a holodeck. Like the amount of technology we would have to develop to get to that point would be too powerful for us to probably be responsible with. It's like that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think the simpler version is like you're talking about, where we're playing in here and not out here. You know,
no,
I think it feels easier.
Yeah, all you got to do is stimulate sensations and figure out which neurons to touch, and your brain will think it's doing all those things.
Yeah, simple, no big deal.
Yeah.
All right, my name is Donovan. I'm not even going to tell you what the comment section is. My name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield,
and we have spoken.
Thank you.